everybody. I had to clear my throat real quick, and I wasn't ready.
It's
been a minute.
It was perfect.
Since I was here. Hi, welcome back to Roundtable Live. I'm BaerTaffy. I'm joined by Mathis Games, Rockley Smile, and joining us again, very special guest, Maggie Krohn. Welcome back to the show, Maggie.
Hey. Thanks for inviting me. This is like, I was just telling them, I was like, this has almost been a full year since I've been here.
I was about to bring up that very detail. Yeah, the first appearance. You told me the date. I have it right here. March 3rd of last year was your first appearance on the show. Very good to have you back again. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me back again.
Mathis.
Hello.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good. There may or may not be missing an intro song in the local recording.
Oh. See,
I can edit that, though. I can edit that. Don't worry.
You got to put the fart up in the top.
I know. I know. I forgot to hit F9. Is really what it boils down to. Hi. What's up, Bear? Welcome back, man.
We missed you, Bear.
Yeah.
Glad to have you back.
I wanted to go around the table real quick.
A lot has happened from the year that I was here. I heard Mathis took over.
That's
and
true.
He's changed everything, and
I mean, I
everything's
wasn't
on fire.
consulted at all.
No.
Nonsense. Absolutely absurd what he's done. No, this is a very, it's a family here, man. This group right here, we're all gonna work together to achieve common goals and move forward. It doesn't really. What am I talking about, Bear? You come back. You try to drive this inspirational wedge into everything. It doesn't need it. We just want to talk about video games, dude. That's what this show is all about. So let's do it. Let's do that. Let's talk about some video games today, shall we?
I'm down.
Kingdom Come Deliverance, the first among the few that I believe we're going to be discussing today. And a big release at that. One that, Nick, you were saying you've heard quite a few people talking about how hyped they were for this, but we didn't really jump on the train for this.
Yeah, I don't know if it's maybe that I'm in sort of like a tunnel here, but I feel like a lot of the people that stream regularly that I know were very excited to get this and play the hell out of it. However, I had heard almost nothing about it until about a month before release. So I was kind of confused as to how this game came out of nowhere and became very popular all of a sudden.
Yeah, so we'll be talking a lot more about that today, along with,
Surprise, surprise.
Shadow of the Colossus, the definitive, pristine, perfect remaster. We'll be talking about
not
today.
perfect, but it's really well done.
It's just
The most well done remaster I've seen in a while.
Perfectly constructed, flawless, 10 out of 10 experience of all time. I'm sorry, I think that's what you meant to say. And we'll talk about that. Well, we got a couple other things as well. I know Nick has been completely submerged in Subnautica. Huh? Yeah, he's
I
still
haven't
got
played it yet. It's on my list because everyone keeps saying I'm gonna love that game. So
Just dive right in. You'll have a great time.
Ayo.
Oh man, damn.
I'm super glad
Don't
you're loving
take
it,
your
though,
breath
dude.
away.
I'm super glad you're fucking loving it. That game is a
so what you're saying is
masterpiece.
it's gonna make a splash.
Yeah, ayo.
Jump
Yeah.
right in.
No, that game is an absolute masterpiece. And what do you think, Nick?
I don't know if I throw around the word masterpiece very often,
Really?
but I think
Oh.
it might be one of the few survival games that I think is actually legitimately good.
Yes.
That actually has a story and is entertaining and engaging, and there's always something to do, incredibly addictive, and it doesn't give you that waffling feeling like even Minecraft can at times, where you just feel like, I don't care, I'll just, I don't know, screw off and play something else.
What's that term? Waffling?
Waffling, like you just don't know what to do next. You're kind of just stuck in
What does it have to do with
mid-thought.
waffles? Waffles are delicious. I always know what to do next with a waffle. You put stuff in it and
Well, you don't put stuff. I mean, sometimes you put stuff in it. Usually you put stuff.
like
on it.
blueberry waffles.
Now
You
you've
put
made
stuff
me
in the
wonder at
little
the
pods.
origin of that. Is it like, do I want waffles or pancakes? Like,
Where
No,
waffles
there's
into
never a
that?
question of whether you want waffles or pancakes. It's waffles.
this is a dangerous topic for debate around our group. They get very passionate about food.
Well, are we? Hold on. Is there a pancake defender in the midst? No.
I don't know if
Am I
I
hearing
would go
crickets?
so far as to jump in and say I'm that, but I do like pancakes a bit. I like waffles.
I like
We're
pancakes.
given the choice and held a gun to your head.
Waffle.
Don't do that.
Well, okay. Don't
Yeah,
do that.
well, let's
You
not
gotta
go
pick
that
between
far.
waffles and pancakes. What are you gonna do? You gotta
Waffles.
pick waffles, of course.
I pick French toast.
Oh, I mean, if French
yeah,
toast is also in the it goes French toast, waffle, pancake is the
Yeah.
hierarchy.
That's actually like that's a fact, really. Though we're not even really
mean,
discussing opinion. We're
I love
talking,
eggs, so it's like
scientific
eggs
facts.
and bread together. Like how you can't go wrong.
Right.
Indoor
exactly.
hiding somewhere camouflaged on this show right now and it's derailed us.
It's I don't know. Something about pancakes is just like pancakes are just too filling.
Yeah.
Like before I can
I
even
think
get through
it depends
2,
on
I'm
the
just
type
like,
of pancake you have.
Pancakes
There's
are a
so many
platypus syrup.
varieties.
yeah, they are. They just soak up the syrup and. Ugh.
Anyway, Subnautica's a game.
That is, it is a game. It is a game. I'm curious, Nick. How far into into the story are you? Without, if you can do it without spoiling it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how I'm gonna do this without spoiling it, to be honest.
Can you just do it as a
I can
percentage?
tell you, I'm like, well, no, because I don't know
He
what
doesn't
the
know.
ending is.
Yeah.
How deep
spent
are you? Have
nearly
you
20
gone?
Hours.
How deep are you in the water? How deep are you able to
I
get?
just got the Mark III upgrade
For which?
for my main vessel.
The
I'm
submarine?
trying
or
not
the...
to say any names.
Well, I mean the vehicle, the submarine.
I think submarine.
Okay,
is
cool,
a
cool,
little
cool.
Fair
bit-
enough.
Yeah,
Submarine.
yeah. All right, cool. So you're getting to the depths of
But I
the
just
story.
got it. I haven't gone to
So
the.
if you were gonna like try to entice somebody else who would want to play this,
Yeah.
I think the reason why my audience really thinks I want to play is because I got on a tangent about how I love scuba diving,
Mm.
and they're like, "You need to play Subnautica," and I was like, "Okay." So it's on my list of things to do next. What
Where have you
would
gone scuba
you say that-
diving? Sorry,
What?
let me turn that into a tangent real quick. Where have you gone scuba diving? Because I've never been.
I went scuba diving in Panama Canal area, like the Panama.
Cool.
That's cool,
It was gorgeous.
Mhm.
Also, they were like, yeah, there's some sharks here, but it's not a big deal. They're well fed. So, like, I think depending on where you
You're
go,
well fed with what?
well, there's a lot of other fish that they can eat.
There's a
And
lot of
stuff.
other
So don't
tour
worry about them if they come by you.
There were a lot of people
Don't
that came before
freak
you, so
out.
don't worry. They've already had plenty.
Yeah, I was like, okay. But I think that if you go, I would recommend going with people who obviously know what they're doing. I personally didn't have a lot of problems, but my cousin was like very helpful and like giving me tips and stuff before I even did it. Which my one tip to anybody who's scuba diving is plug your nose and constantly blow out of it. Like it will just release pressure. Like I just did that like every second and I never had any problems. I like breathed and just breathed normal. Like I had no problems whatsoever with scuba diving and it was so much fun. I thought I would freak out because it's like kind of you're going underwater really deep, right? Like it's
It's
just
scary, yeah.
it sounds scary, but it wasn't actually scary. It was actually really cool because everything's just silent. You hear nothing, but there's just like so much life going on around you, like little fish dancing and playing around with each other and like things sputtering across into like underneath hiding in things and like just like everything is beautiful and amazing and it's just like it makes you think about like what would life be like if humans weren't there to touch everything, right? Like I don't know why, but
That's cool. Yeah, I like
it's
that.
It's
really
a very alien experience, I imagine. It's like we've got our world, and then there's this other world that's like right here.
and like you be in the
Yeah.
middle of like sardines just swimming around like a huge ass school of them, like thousands and thousands, and you're just like, what if they don't leave?
You go on my
It's
pizza.
crazy, you know? I don't know. It's just madness, which I think is
I
just
gotta do that in my life.
Yeah.
at some
Yeah,
point.
really.
I think
That
that's
sounds
why Subnautica works so well, though, because like,
Yeah.
granted, you're on an alien world in Subnautica, but because you're underwater, and I don't, maybe you feel the same way, Nick, but the audio design is done so well that it just feels like you're in like the ocean on Earth.
They play to the strengths of generally survival games. They tend to kind of follow this similar thing of we really want every experience to be very different, so we've randomized all these things. We've made the map sort of procedural. This one doesn't do that because it has a very specific purpose in what it's trying to accomplish, and it caters to the story in that fact. If it was randomized, I think it would end up being kind of bland. And in this case, they really like pushed all of the zones that there are to be very different and interesting and curious. And there's just this feeling of wonder. Everything's got this kind of like bioluminescent thing going on. All of the best bits of what you like about looking at pictures of the ocean seem to be present everywhere you go. There's little bits of like actual ecology happening, and some of the fish will actually collect bits of metal and put them in a pile because that's the thing they seem to like to do. There's actually like specific characteristics you start to learn about the stuff around you. Not to mention, I mean, you're just in a survival situation, which is actually kind of ongoing. Like things are developing as you're in it, instead of feeling like you're kind of just perpetually waiting for something or trying to build your way out of it. And you are doing that as well.
Did you guys ever play Soma at all?
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's one of my favorite horror.
Okay, I
thriller
love
experiences.
Soma. Like I thought it was such a well done game, and I loved the story.
The
I
story was
loved.
fantastic.
I hate amnesia type of games, or like games where like you have to run and hide, but I actually didn't mind it that much. I think because like the story just drove me to like I want to know what happened, right?
the characters and the voice acting, the whole thing just totally sucked me in that game. I always recommend it as one of my best top picks for that type
Soma
of
was
genre.
amazing.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty quick playthrough, like Soma is at least.
Yeah. And they now have, I think they have like no horror mode now, like officially in
No
the game.
monster
No
mode,
monster
yeah.
mode.
Oh,
Be a
really?
mod, and then they integrate it into the actual
I
game.
feel like
Yeah,
the
that's what it
monster
was.
aspect of it was kind of like
Forced.
part of the experience.
Oh, really? You liked it?
though, To
Two
me, yeah.
completely different ideas.
I
Yeah.
could go either way with it. So yeah, you got every bit of the range in that.
Yeah. I hated
I
it.
think you could. I think you could get away. Obviously, get away with having that not and make it more exploration driven. But I think it lent to like another element of like, there's something else here, like, and it made you curious as to what was going on.
Well, there's something like that going on with Subnautica too, right? There's sort of a bigger picture that you weren't expecting, right, Nick?
Yeah, it definitely messed with my expectations.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I wasn't really spoiled. I happened to watch Yancey's review for it today, and it kind of gave away a bit of the later part, which I didn't expect because he usually gives spoiler warnings. But there is actually like a legitimately cool story going on and some stuff that you won't see coming happening in it. So, you know,
I'm excited to play through it.
Yeah, it does a great job too. Like the deeper you get, the creepier the ocean and the life of the ocean becomes. And it's very similar to our ocean, where like the deeper and darker it gets, the more, I don't want to say aggressive, but the more kind of like the creatures that are desperate for fighting for life because food is so scarce, kind of thing. That's represented in Subnautica perfectly. There's
an ominous tension too, like just everywhere you go. There's some kind of different creepy thing. You're not quite sure why it's creepy yet, and then eventually you learn.
Yeah.
How often
They're
is
like a hard way of learning.
Right, yeah. How often is the creepiness justified, or do you end up finding out, oh, that's just a piece of seaweed wrapped around my foot?
As in nature, I think it's sort of a mixed bag. Occasionally, things that look incredibly dangerous happen to be docile, and then vice versa. So it's again, it's about expectations. You can't always really trust your instincts because it's all foreign to you. It's all alien. So it's about learning it.
One of the great things about the game too is like your ear gets trained very quickly to recognize, like, once a musical cue hits, you're like, okay, I'm going to be entering this zone now, and I know to expect X, Y, and Z creatures in this zone, to keep my eye out for X because of where I am. And it's the same thing when you start seeing different types of plant life. You're like, okay, I know when I see that kind of plant life, these types of creatures are going to be around, and I need to keep my eye out for that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So that, like you were saying before, is like there's a lot of ecology that's happening.
Yeah.
So you kind of, that's neat. I like that.
Great.
Like continuity.
Yeah. I appreciate that a lot in games like this. Like, it's pretty easy to sort of disregard that as unnecessary to the experience, but when they pay attention to little details like that, I find it really enhances it for me.
I wanted to ask Mathis, do you find the eating and drinking element of the survival experience, do you think that was better or worse served in this particular game?
I think it was fine for the first half of the game, maybe quarter of the game, but once you're up and running and like you have everything you need, it becomes a nuisance. They do give you the option to play the game without needing to worry about anything other. Yeah, I like the idea that they're like, well, you could play without having to worry about food, water, or health, or you could play just to worry about your health, or you can play food, water, and your health, or you could play one life and you die, and once you're dead, you lose it all. So they give you like 4 different ways to play the game, which is nice.
How dangerous is it if you were to choose the one life option?
It gets pretty freaking dangerous. I
How
died
many
a lot.
times have you both died, roughly?
You just used? Did you say firkin? I heard you say.
Did I say firkin?
Freaking and frickin'.
I mean, I
think
mashed them together.
Oh, nice.
How many times did I die? I probably died anywhere between 5 and 10 times.
Same.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it's just because, oh crap, I was not. I'd say half of those deaths were I wasn't prepared for the depth of the dive I was going on, and so I ran out of food, water, and that kind of thing. I just starved to death. And the other half was I got surprised by some creatures.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of like having it be on regular mode, I feel like the deaths are generally fair and they're not overly punishing. Like the worst thing about it is you kind of have to swim back a ways to get to your stuff, but they don't like seek to make you angry, which is nice, especially when you're always fighting tedium and the fact of like getting food and water. And that's why I was asking. I kind of wanted to see what your definitive version of the experience would be. Now that I'm, I guess, roughly halfway through the game, I feel like it's great that they give you all these options to automate the processes of getting food and water, but maybe they should have done that a little sooner because it's like I'm still chasing down bladderfish for water sometimes, and why? It's kind of like
Yeah, the way I mitigated it personally is I built 2 indoor grow beds on my submarine, and I just grew plants in them, and I would just farm up the fruit that gave me food and water.
I figured, yeah, eventually they just have a way for you to just infinitely farm things. Within
Yeah.
your
You're
own.
just not being efficient.
Yeah, dude.
It's still annoying though because you still have to deal with it. And in the submarine, as great as it is not meant to go to finesse your way into the more deep, complicated areas because it's so freaking huge. You basically bring your submarine to the entrance of that area and then go in your smaller vessel and head down to those areas.
Right.
And you can't bring, so you got to kind of prepare and bring food and water for that kind of trip.
I'm kind of excited. This game sounds really fun.
It's great. Hopefully you don't run into too many bugs because when I played, I ran into like 3 rough bugs. One launched my submarine into the sky and about 1,000 or like 100,000 like kilometers away from me. So I was like, well,
That's not a bug, dude.
That's at least hilarious, though.
yeah, it was funny. Luckily, I was just like, it was at that in my series. I was just like, all right, guys, you're gonna have to bear with me. That's just not fair. So I'm just gonna spawn in a submarine because that thing just got launched for no reason.
Yeah.
Like I think I was docking a vehicle in my submarine, and the submarine like glitched. It was like gone, and I was like, all right, well, see you later. And then I got another one where a monster was below the ground, and he like reached up and grabbed my vehicle and yanked it underneath the textures of the ground. I was like, well, there goes that. All right, well.
That sounds horrifying.
Well, it's glitched.
Oh
it was
my
glitched.
god.
But other than
we
that,
were-
game
Chat
looks
called us out saying we might have been talking about different submarines. You were talking about the Cyclops. I was talking about the Seamoth.
Oh, okay.
I just got my second vehicle and have not gotten the Cyclops yet.
Okay. Gotcha.
If that helps you know.
A Seamoth sounds smaller than a Cyclops.
It is.
It
Much
is.
more maneuverable as well. And chat was asking, why is it that we're talking about this now? It only recently came out of early access to a full release, and I've been playing it currently, and Mathis has a YouTube series.
Yeah. Fucking phenomenal game. Play it. Even if you have passing interest in survival games, like this does so much to the survival genre to the point where I wouldn't necessarily call it a survival game, though it has aspects of it.
Wait, how is it not a survival game?
It's more, in my opinion, it's more of an exploration, story-driven game. I think it's more of like an adventure game than it has survival elements, but
It's more of a survival game than even Solus Project is, and they're both kind of on the fringe.
I wouldn't call Solus Project a survival game though. See, I don't think.
But it has resource management and health and food and all that.
Sure, but
What's
Solus
the cutoff
Project.
for you?
Yeah, I guess we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. I've played like maybe it's just like my palette for survival games is different because I've played. I think The Long Dark is the quintessential survival game because in
Yeah.
that game you're dealing with food, water, calories, sleep. How much sleep have you had?
Like the plot is survive.
Yeah, the plot is literally just survive.
Well, I'm talking about the genre, though.
Yeah.
Right, and
think,
I-
like,
but-
they all of the games that you said are still survival games. Maybe that's not like the main purpose of them, right? But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it can't be considered a survival game because I think I call it a survival game in my review, but as far as like my personal thing, I don't know. I call it more of an
If you had
adventure
to
story
give it,
game.
like,
he's like, I'm contradicting myself. But it's
I would put it as an adventure game first, survival game second.
okay, so that's basically what I'm getting at. 'Cause
Yeah.
if you had to do that.
well, you can be an adventure survival game.
Look, I'm just saying. That's all I'm
Survival
saying.
games have to be adventure though, because in order to survive, you have to adventure to get the things that you need. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
like
surviving
they
in my
tied-
bedroom is an adventure, right? So
I wouldn't call a game like
Fair.
I wouldn't call a game like freaking Zomboid or Long Dark's adventure games because the point of them is just to survive until you die. There's no adventure really. Like there's no story in those games, and I guess that's where I'm calling adventure. There's a story
You
involved.
want to break down the definition of adventure?
Oh my
Because I
God.
think we should get into that then.
When I say adventure, I'm talking like I'm reminiscent more of like point and click adventure type games where it's mostly story driven.
A
is
personal tale
Dragon's
being told.
Quest a survival game?
Like an adventure movie.
It's Shrek an adventure movie. Anyway,
Shrek an
that's Subnautica. Speaking of survival games, I've also been playing Stellaris 2.0.
I want to play so bad.
I really liked Stellaris 1.0, which came out in March of 2 years ago. They've come out, as Paradox does, every 3 or 4 months they hit an expansion that adds a bunch to the game, as well as a big free patch that comes with that expansion that adds a lot to the game for free as well. They are releasing Apocalypse, which introduces world crackers, which is like destroying planets and like Titan class ships and all this other stuff in the Stellaris, which is amazing. But they're also redoing the whole game, almost, I don't want to say from the ground up, but they're redoing the whole game and calling it 2.0, changing quite a bit of the game. Again, not necessarily going to call it from the entirety, but they do a lot to change it up. I don't know if any of you played Stellaris or tried to play Stellaris, though. So
I played a touch of it, and it was so overwhelming.
Okay, that's not going to stop. That feeling ain't going to stop.
It's an adventure game?
It's an adventure game. It's an adventure strategy game.
Strategy. I would say I
with
call it
mixes
strategy.
with
We're going to go on the topics again of like what type of game this is.
Sorry, I just had to call back. That's all.
They're changing a lot about the game. One of the biggest problems with 1.0 was the middle to late game got a little bit boring. There was just not a lot to do outside of like perpetual wars. They've added a ton to the late game, and the changes that they made to 2.0 make the late game more interesting. There's more universe-ending crises that can happen and stuff that what I like about Stellaris is it introduces these big enemies usually in the late game that if you're at war with like 3 or 4 other I don't want to call them nations, but you know what I mean, civilizations. Yeah. In order to defeat them, you kind of have to come together temporarily to fight them back out of the galaxy, and then you come back and go back and fighting. There's more of those introduced. They've gotten rid of, in the beginning of Stellaris, you usually chose one of 3 different hyperdrive kind of travels for your race. Either hyper lanes, like freeform hyper jumping from nearby star systems, or wormhole. They've gotten rid of all but the hyper lanes. Everybody has hyper lanes now. So every star is connected to another star or a couple other stars by one lane, and that's it. And I like that because it makes it much more strategic. You can set up choke points now of like, all right, if you're going to come into my territory, I know there's like only 4 entrances here, so I can set up defenses to these particular hyper lanes. No longer do you have to worry about, well, okay, that nation uses wormholes and that nation uses like the freeform hyper jump and I use hyper lanes, and I have to worry about the way they do things because it was too much and didn't make for too much strategy.
Might have solved Bear's problem where he was like, it was too much, like it was overwhelming for him.
I think that might honestly just be a Paradox problem, though. In general,
their tutorials are garbo. They always are.
I mean, it's not even that necessarily. It's just I know that they are responsible for creating these grand strategy games that require in-depth knowledge of the proceedings of the game to be able to actually even play it. So,
people love that stuff, though. They like.
Rob,
so crazy.
Rob talks about it all the time.
Intricacies of everything, you know what I mean?
I mean, I can sit here and say, well, once you crack through the surface and you understand the basics, you're gonna have a great time. But cracking through the surface is like a job. It's hard.
You need a jackhammer.
And like Stellaris is the easiest, the most accessible out of all their games, and it's still a tough cookie to crack.
Have you gotten to do more of like the multiplayer experience?
Not with Stellaris, I haven't.
Okay.
All their other games, yes, but Stellaris, no. And I assume it's similar to their other games, but they've just added a lot. And the big thing is the 2.0 patch is free. You don't have to pick up Apocalypse for it. And in the 2.0 patch, they're actually rolling in a bunch of the features that came from the other expansions are going to be part of the 2.0 patch roll-in. So if you never picked up any of the expansions, stuff that they deem necessary for the 2.0 experience from those other expansions are being rolled in for free. So you can just play.
I like that more companies are doing that kind of stuff. It incentivizes you to like buy the new thing, especially as a new player. Because sometimes people, I feel like they're like, oh, well, I haven't played the previous thing, so why would I do this, right? Or they feel like they need to do that in order to get to the next one.
It definitely helps. Like when jumping into Stellaris, and again, it's been 2 years since I've touched Stellaris, but because I know Paradox games so well, even though I haven't played it in so long, I look at the UI and I can immediately recognize like, okay, I know what those are, Even though they have different symbols in this game, they're pretty much the same thing as EU4 or CK2. Like you kind of know what you're looking at. But again, it's I don't want to go through because we've talked about Stellaris in the past. It's a really fun experience. The early game of Stellaris is great. Like right now, I haven't run into any other spacefaring nations in my playthrough, but I just came across a primitive race on a planet that they just hit the space age, so they got their very first satellite in orbit around their planet, and I've discovered them beforehand, and I have like an option. Like, do I want to just obliterate them from existence and take their planet? Because doing some studies, I've realized they're relatively militaristic and they're relatively confrontational. So when they do get to the space age, they could be a problem because they're my neighbors. I could start aggressively abducting them and learning from them and maybe using them as like an intelligence kind of foundation, or I can start slowly indoctrinating them, like sending envoys and trying to have them see our way of life and elevate them to the space age under my protection. So that when
sounds like the Mathis way.
that's what I think I'm gonna do, is like I'm gonna elevate them to the space age, and then they're gonna become my protectorate. So once they do hit you know, the hyper advanced technology,
come work for me.
yeah.
Dude, your cat is going
Maya.
crazy.
She's making some
She's
wild
just
noises
like
right
running
now.
like a mad woman behind you.
Good lord, she just jumped up behind my computer. It's like, I'm like, all right, Maya, you fucking crazy. Anyway, Stellaris 2.0. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Cool. Stellaris is also 60% off on Steam this week.
Oh, grab it, man.
Nice.
If you like 4Xs and grand strategy games, grab it.
You want to get into the meat of it then?
Yeah. Where do you want to hit first? Shadow of the Colossus Bear? You want to touch Shadow?
No, let's save that. I think that's going to be the dessert for me. Kingdom Come Deliverance is what I want to get into first and foremost. So you should probably just go ahead and take the reins
So
here.
Kingdom Come Deliverance, for those who don't know, is a game that was kickstarted a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, by Warhorse Studios. It's gonna be the first game, and their goal was an open world RPG that was set in reality. It was set in actual history. So it takes place in the 1400s, what would eventually become Czechoslovakia, I believe. It's Bohemia right now during the Holy Roman Empire, and you play as a small farm boy named Henry, who lives with his dad, who's a blacksmith, and his mom, who like tends to the house and cooks food and stuff. And at some point during that first hour, your little small village is attacked by this huge army, and everybody is killed, but you escape, and your story kind of just takes place
you're the
from
hero.
there.
That's right.
But that's what I like about it. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's free roaming. It's based on actual history, and it is a very heavy simulation game.
By heavily, he means if you'd like to play 6 hours of a tutorial. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could get into. So, Nick, you said you were not sure why it got so popular, like out of nowhere.
I think they've been ramping it up for a while, though. Like I've seen it at conventions and things of that sort too. Like
Yeah.
their PR team has been pretty great about getting them in the right spaces and utilizing like streamers and content creators. I feel like.
Yeah.
They've when the game has been in development, like I said, they reached out to me periodically, be like, hey, do you want to check out the alpha? Hey, do you want to check out the beta? Blah blah blah. I've seen it at some conventions. But even to me, when I found out it was releasing on February 13th, I think it was, like a week before it was released, I got an email like, hey, we're coming out of early access next week, or not early access, out of beta next week. Do you want a code? And I was like, oh crap, they're coming out next week. That kind of came out of nowhere. And I was talking to other people about it too. They were like, oh my god, that's next week. Are you sure it's not beta? And I'm like, no, I'm sure it's the full release of the game. It did hit a bunch of people by surprise, but I think a lot of people had it on, at the very least, like always had it in the back of their mind, a game to like be excited about when the game came out, because there was so much to be promised in this game. And after, I'm 15 hours in. After the first couple of hours, I was like very iffy on it. And then once I crossed a very particular point in the game, I was like, okay, I'm sold. Like,
I have the same experience as you. Except for my tutorial experience was much longer than yours. But I'm also kind of like, when it comes to adventure games, and I wanted to, we were kind of talking about this before, is like take, The Witcher, for example. Like I put in like 170 hours into that my first time playing through. Like, I think I'm just that type of person who's just gonna like look and do all the weird side things. But I feel like Kingdom Come Deliverance also allows you to do that, but the first bit is very linear. Like you're gonna feel like they're like hand holding you and guiding you through this junk that you have to do, but it's teaching you along the way, and then it kind of lets you go a little bit more once you reach a certain stage.
What about it requires so much tutorialization?
So that's the tough part, right? Like, that's a little bit, that title's a little off. There we go.
Welcome to my hell, dude.
I know. Good enough. So here's the issue with the game, and the difficulty of the why the first couple hours is so heavily tutorialized. God, how do I? There's so much that's in this game. So the idea of like you're the hero from, the peasant boy who lived and will now be the hero, and you're going to be this amazing guy who's going to save the world, is thrown out the window really, really quickly. The very first time you pick up a sword, you're like, okay, how do I do this? And surprise, surprise, peasant Henry's also like, I've never held a sword in my life. What do I do? And so like you swing it once and his stamina gets like completely destroyed. Like he can barely swing it. You haven't had the proper tutorial for combat yet. So all the things that like to teach you how to block and swing, you don't know, and neither does Henry. So you're kind of just like swinging wildly at the enemy, and you usually get your ass handed to you. So
I feel like the melee combat in general is also a little janky.
it is.
I don't know what your opinion is on that, but I feel like it is janky.
It is
Looks
janky.
like worse chivalry.
Yeah. Chivalry is better.
It's janky. We'll talk about that, but like so they tutorialize you. Eventually, they tutorialize you on basic sword fighting, very very basic stuff. They also need to teach you that you need to pay attention to the way you look. So one of the things the game simulates is dirt and blood on your sword and stuff. So if you want to approach somebody, say a noble, and you want to talk to them for a quest about whatever it is you're doing, you want to look clean. You want to look presentable. So if you just came out from a long ride in the wilderness where you killed some bandits and maybe did some hunting for fun, and you're all muddied up and there's blood on your sword and there's blood on your shield, you're going to get a massive penalty to speaking to a noble when trying to persuade them of stuff.
So staying clean is important. It's so cool.
Yeah,
I like it.
so you can dip your face in a trough real quick if you want and like quickly splash water on you and get like a little bit of clean and then go that way. Or you can go to the bathhouse, pay money.
Trough your first instinct.
Because it's free. It doesn't cost anything.
No, yeah, it is. It's like a trough out there. Like he's actually going off of experience.
Yeah, no, that's what you do in the game. Like if I'm like I got to do this now, splash water on my face and go in, that's fine. Or you can pay some money, spend a couple hours, go to the in-game hours, go to the bathhouse. They'll polish your armor, polish your sword, clean your clothes. You take a bath, and then you get this massive bonus to speaking.
Speaking of the bathhouse, I had like a bug where one of the NPCs like formed like 4 NPCs, and it looked so creepy. While I was taking a bath, I was like, "This is so creepy." I was like, they're like bringing me the bucket and pouring it into the thing, and then like walking away, and I'm like, "Oh."
Now, pardon me,
That's
as I
hilarious.
rolled into my companion here.
Can you not bathe in a stream or like have your own house where you bathe at home?
Your character can't swim, so
Yeah,
you
but,
can't
like-
go in anything other
Like
than
a 2-inch deep stream.
they don't. No, that option's not there. Actually, you can't like splash
That's
yourself in
real
a stream.
dumb.
But you can.
Yeah.
But you don't have a bath in your house. You're a peasant, and you're currently spending you're sleeping in somebody else's house who's
Okay.
keeping you on like the kindness out of their own heart, but they're only giving you a bed, and you owe them money for saving you, more or less.
Fair enough. I figured you were on a path to greatness, so in the course of that, maybe you would own property. That seems like a common thing.
Speaking of time, though, you mentioned time. I think the way that they do time is really fun and cool. Like
Yeah.
you can like skip forward, and like the UI for it is I actually like the UI for it.
So yeah, that's another thing that they teach you too in tutorialization is that you can skip time and sleep. And unlike Skyrim, where just kind of like bap, you're there. Every hour is simulated. So it goes slow and you see the clock turning. But the reason they're doing that is because all the NPCs and stuff, they're doing things. They're doing their own quests. And if you actually take on a side quest, say for instance, you take on a quest to kill
like a timely quest.
yeah, like there's bandits near the town. Please wipe them out for us. They're causing us problems. And then you ignore that quest. If you come back like 2 days later, they're like, you didn't do shit. And we sent our own people out there to take care of it for us. Like,
Yeah.
we're not paying you for this. And also next time, don't do that. And so the
It's
days.
cool. Like it actually has a world. Like it feels like you have a
love
world. And I think even just talking with the NPCs, like the voice acting is really well done. Like they did. Yeah, I think the only thing that is a little off about it sometimes is that sometimes, and if this is only going to matter if you're like a super audiophile person, sometimes the audio doesn't feel like it was like obviously not recorded in that setting because they didn't put enough like effects on it to make it feel like
Yeah.
I'm in this type of room or something like that. But the audio, like the emotions and stuff like that coming from the NPCs is really good.
I actually had a bug too where an NPC said the same line twice but different
Oh, no.
inflections. So it was clearly you did the line twice, but they forgot to pick one. So
Oh,
they left
no.
both of them in. I was like, all right, that works. So yeah, so they teach you that. You also have to keep yourself fed. There's nourishment involved. You can overeat. So if you overeat, you're gonna be more sluggish in combat. You're not gonna be able to run as fast, and you're gonna be kind of more, less useful. You can also be malnourished, which means you can be a lot weaker. It's also one of those games where you can take arm injuries and head injuries and leg injuries and start bleeding from the leg, and now you're limping, and now you're bleeding in your head, so your vision's covered in blood. And
Can we talk about the stealing system too and stuff like that?
yeah, and then
I think that part is really funny to me because like guards will actually sometimes like pat you down and like check to see
Yep.
if you've stolen things.
Oh, really?
But you can just like take it all out and like put it like you can take it out right in front of them and then go up to them and then
If you see a card coming, be like, "Hey, you!" and you're like, "Hang on."
hold on, let me
Let me
Go
toss
ahead.
this indiscriminate bag real quick.
I feel like that's not a problem in a traditional game. However, if you're going through all this painstaking realism simulation, like you kind of have to address those really obvious things.
Yeah.
There-
That's frustrating to me.
There are a couple things that are a little bit frustrating as far as the game is concerned, but there's some really cool moments too, like the bathhouse, for instance. There's a quest very early on where you need to go get, I think it was a ring or something out of that bathhouse, and the way I went about it is I went in and I snuck in at night and I stole it. But the woman who was sleeping in the room, she was like rousing, so I ran over and knocked her out. I was like, and I like smothered her, and I was like, shh,
Yeah, no.
yeah, hand on her mouth, hand on her neck, and you just were like, shh, quiet until she knocked out.
Squash your neck.
But you don't kill her.
Killed her.
No, she's alive. Because what ends up,
made it go to sleep.
but she was awake when I did it, so she saw my face. So she left after I took the ring. When I came back to the bathhouse the next day, there was a guard waiting out there, standing outside the gate, waiting for me. And he was like, "Hey!" But then he came over. He's like, your face was seen. You know, you're hurting this woman, blah, blah. You need to pay up or go to jail. And I was like, or you can flee, of course. I had no money, and I wasn't about to flee. So I went to jail, and I spent like 6 days in jail, which take forever, by the way. Like, that's actually a problem I have with the game, is like, while waiting and simulating the day is neat, when you spend 6 days in prison, holy crap, it takes
don't go to
forever.
prison then,
Don't be
dumbass.
freaking choking out a lady
Oh,
in her
same.
sleep in her house.
feel
Like, what are you doing?
I
You of
should've
all
just-
people should not have to receive special instruction not to break the damn law again.
Well,
Come on.
I'm just saying, like, it was annoying.
There
So
should be a lockpick mechanic for trephination and like lobotomies, so you could cut the piece of memory out, and then she would know who you are.
or I should have just taken my sword out and stabbed her in her sleep afterward. Just been like,
No,
You
sure.
know,
Oh,
much
she's
more
dead.
elegant solution, I guess.
Hail Grumsh.
I mean, I guess
Exactly.
if you
Yes.
kill her, then she can't remember.
well, that's
your
another
face.
thing the game teaches you is like no witnesses. If nobody sees you commit the crime, nobody can report the crime to the
Oh,
guards.
God.
So, like, how do you
I
want to
just-
play?
Maggie, before I forget, I did see a Grumsh license plate today, of all things. It was
You did, and you didn't take
yeah.
a picture of it and share it
should-
with
oh,
us?
yeah.
That's awesome.
It was while we were driving, so I didn't
Oh,
want
man.
dangerous.
That's so great.
That would have been great.
to. Yeah. Inside
Um,
joke for those of you who know.
Yeah, no, D&D joke, baby.
We played D&D together for like
So,
a year and a half.
The thing, so the thing that I tell people who are just jumping into the game, mainline the main story, because there are something the game doesn't teach you is there are 2 sword fighting tutorials. 2. There's the first one that teaches you how to fight, and then the game kind of opens up a little bit after that. I was like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing, so I'll go out into the wild. But the game didn't teach you the intricacies of blocking and parrying and all that stuff. Another hour later, through like another main storyline quest, the game will then be like, okay, since we're going to recruit you into the army as like a schlub soldier, let's teach you how to properly fight. And then he'll take you into the arena, and then he'll teach you how to block and parry and dodge. After you learn that, that's when I say, go have fun. Like, go play the game. But that's like 3 or 4 hours in, and the game just doesn't tell you that, and the game actually opens up before that second tutorial. So I was, like Maggie, probably wandering for a while, being like, I don't understand why I can't, like, block, and why things doing this, and it's so frustrating.
I think even after that point, like I still feel like the combat is janky.
It is still janky.
Like,
It's
yes,
manageably...
once you learn those things, it's like, oh, finally I can do something that seems like intuitive to us because we've been doing that. But like, I understand they're trying to like continuity of this person who you're playing through the world and their experience, their experiences. But it's like, I don't know. It's not the most delightful experience.
It's like a weird mix of chivalry with For Honor combat.
But see, I like For Honor more.
Well, I'm
Like,
not
For
saying
Honor
it's
was, like,
bad For Honor combat.
Awesome.
It's like
I
janky
loved For Honor combat. I was like, yes, oh, I can block. And like,
The reason I say
made sense.
that for those who haven't played it is because the way you fight, it has like when you're fighting somebody, has like a wheel around them of like 5 little spokes of where you can swing your sword. And then
There's like a center one too, right?
yeah, and there's a center dot where that's where you like if you're gonna do like a quick jab or a stab, that's
Right,
where
yeah.
it'll happen. And then the more you play, the more you realize, and if you go back to the guy who gave you the tutorial, he can actually start training you in combos. He'll start teaching you, like, if you do head, top right, bottom left, it actually is a special combo that on that bottom left swing, he'll wheel his sword up and go for, like, an over the shield stab. So, like, if this guy's constantly blocking, if you open up with that combo, then you can do that, and then you can learn more and more combos through just
learn
practice.
some stuff fighting game style.
Yeah, it really is very. But again, like Maggie said, it's
still it's
janky.
not about like that part and the logic of it. Perfect, right? All of that makes sense, and like you're playing through it, it makes sense. It's just the actual feel of it. Just something about it just feels not.
Is it the animation?
Well, because yeah, I'd say yes, but because it's like how do I describe it? It feels like the sword
satisfying to hit.
It is. It's very satisfying to hit.
Very satisfying.
The sound is satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's because like even though it's going for like the feel of a sword is heavy and your character isn't always the camera isn't always locked onto the person dead in front of you. Like if he swings down with a heavy swing, his vision is going to go down a little bit. So there's like bobbing and the camera's always bobbing and weaving as you're fighting.
That might be it too, is like the angle of the camera. Even if you have like a larger FOV, which you can choose kind of where you want to go with it. But
yeah, I think this is the fact that the whole body is being like rendered, because you like if you look down, you have your feet and your body and arms and all that stuff, like all
which
that
I think
exists.
is cool. I like that part.
Yeah, it's just
I often look down in games and I'm like, I have no legs.
Not this one.
Like the standard.
Yeah. But no, I think a lot of it is the animations. I think a lot of it too is the fact that your character's still garbage at fighting, and the more he fights, the more he can do more swings without like burning through stamina, and he gets better with it and he hits harder. The other thing you have to do too is you have to pay attention to your weapons' durability. Your weapons can break. And though it's not like Witcher where it's super fast, or like even close to Zelda's, which breaks after like 2 swings, it takes a while. You can just pick up the bandits that you killed, their weapons, and start using those. Or you can go to town and there's a grindstone, and you can actually like with a mini game do the grindstone for your sword and like sharpen it and bring it back up. All those little things are
little details, and like you play card
place.
Games or like tabletop games with like the NPCs. Like there's just all these small little details that I think are just really well done.
Yeah, but for as far as story is concerned, I'm 15 hours in and I'm still the lowest ranking little military soldier in the army, and that's it. Like I'm still like a nobody. I was like a beat cop for a little while where I was patrolling the streets of the town being like, time to close up shop, everybody, it's nighttime, ding ding, ring the bell. And you know, they make you do those things. They make you go through some boring menial everyday tasks, and I think that's good because they don't make it do too long, but once you get to the important stuff where you're out in the wilderness and fighting, it feels more rewarding.
But the wilderness, like just the atmosphere and ambiance is really, I think, to some extent, really well done. Other than the fact that I think they could add like more creatures in the world, like just random creatures that are kind of like making it feel more lived in, because it doesn't feel it's lived in. Like you'll be like by a lakeside, right? And like it doesn't feel like there's like flies or anything. Like there's just nothing. It's just you and the lake, right? So I think that part is a little weird, but like the world itself, like you'll be walking and it's morning, right? And you'll see people like waking up and coming out of their houses. Like it has this cool like world feel about it. That's the only thing is the ambiance of like the
actual wilderness doesn't feel lived in. The towns feel very well lived in.
Yeah.
The wildlife, like I've run into a few deer here and there, but when they see you, they run. So you don't get to like, you know, they don't get to watch them to kind of do their thing. Rabbits are very stupid.
You want to know something that both Shadow Colossus and Kingdom have in common?
Yes.
Their fucking horses suck.
Oh, the horse riding in Kingdom Come is awful.
Their horses suck. I have ridden a million horses in my lifetime. Like I come from Wisconsin. We ride horses. That's not how horses work. And you can't
like,
tell me they don't always listen to you. I get it. They do. They don't always listen to you, but not they're gonna walk over a like a 2-centimeter rock or 2-inch rock. Like this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a lot of fighting with the horse, being like, "Come on, dude!" It's like
that's you know I'll pardon you the offense of insulting my masterpiece, but I do understand what you're talking about regarding like the horse not wanting to jump.
Shadow Colossus is the worst for it too. I feel like it's even worse. Like you're like, why are you No. We're going this way. I'm like, stop. Why?
Yeah, I know.
Can I ask you a couple questions? Because I'm not fully sure I know what like the arc of this game is exactly. Like
Sure.
It's supposed to be an open world RPG, right?
Yep.
It's open.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is your character's motivation to participate in anything rather than just go and live in the woods and become
Family has been killed and you need to avenge them.
Yeah, there's a few main quests. The main one is avenge your family because you watched your parents get killed before your very eyes by this very one specific leader of the army that attacked. So you know who killed, you want him dead.
Okay.
There's also like little side main story of like he some thugs also stole your father was a blacksmith, and the very last sword he made was for a noble called Sir Radzig, and that sword was stolen. And you promised your dad you would give that sword to Sir Radzig, and you got to go find that sword.
But you can't be self-sufficient in this game. You've got to like rely on NPCs and do quests. You can't like go do your own thing.
You can. You absolutely can.
Oh,
There's a bunch of side quests. You can actually go into the wild and hunt and sell things, or go bandit hunting in the wild.
So can you break the game economy by going out and hunting until you have a ton of gold and then go buy really strong stuff? Or
it depends. So the I guess the balancing factor to that is, in the Middle Ages, almost all land was owned by nobles. So even though you may find a deer and you kill the deer and you harvest the deer's meat and antlers, it is considered stolen property because you were poaching animals.
So some people won't buy it from you.
So they won't buy it from you. Like a lot of stores won't buy that meat from you because it's poached meat.
Also, food will go like rot in your bags as you go for days. Like, so you have to like eat food. It's a survival game to some extent too. So you have to eat food and stuff like as you're going.
So if you want to sell the antlers and stuff, you got to go sell it to a fence, more or less.
Okay.
And every NPC only has a set amount of money they have to sell it, to give you. Yeah. So they can't just give you infinite cash for everything that you have.
And it's probably kind of silly that I bring up these very specific niche questions, but like to me, those loopholes in the kind of game engine, the way they present it, it represents depth to me. That they thought of these kind of options and let the player have them rather than it's a video game, so you have to talk to this NPC and take this quest. I like that you have a little more freedom than that. So
yeah, and you could, and say you did get a bunch of gold and bought like the best sword and the best armor you could get. If you don't have the stats to wear it or use it, though, you can't use it, or you can use it very ineffectually.
Yeah, I get that.
So like that's the other balancing fact. Like I got this amazing sword that I spent a ton of money on, but I mean I can equip it, but I swing it like a lug because I don't have like the highest
Believe
strength
me, you
I
do
need.
not want to be doing that. It's janky enough as is.
Yeah. So and that's I saw this this app description of how I feel the game is kind of presented is like Kingdom Come Deliverance is this really gorgeous building, this really glorious mansion being held up by 2x4 plywood shaking underneath it, ready to break at any moment, because it is there's so many interesting systems working with one another in this game that anytime one of them maybe breaks, the whole thing could come crumbling down. It feels like the term Eurojank, this is a Eurojank masterpiece, much like Mount & Blade Warband is. Mount & Blade is an amazing strategy game, but it is very
Eurojank masterpiece.
Yeah, dude.
I love
Find
it.
that, like, just as you go, you'll find a lot of weird bugs too.
Yes,
like
this
weird
is a lot of
lighting
weird.
bugs, weird, like just weird things that happen, and you're just like, and it just breaks your immersion.
Yep. I found this bandit camp, for instance, yesterday, and I snuck up behind the guy. He didn't see me because I stopped short of where I could see him in the bushes, like waiting to jump me. So I got off the horse. I went around him. I'm like right by his side, and I'm just sitting there with my sword out, and the dude is just like staring at the road. He's waiting. He's waiting. I'm just like, and I was just sitting there, like, and I got closer, and he was just like, I'm gonna get this guy. When he walks down this road, I just got behind him. I'm just like, and he's like, oh, Dad. He was just like, and another one too is like I found this bandit camp and I was supposed to kill the leader. So I waited till night when they all went to sleep and I snuck in and I stabbed the leader and I killed all of them except for one. And the one dude threw his hands up. He's like, dude, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. And that happens a lot too. A bandit could attack you, and the minute you pull your sword, when they realize that you're well armed, they'll give up instantly without ever fighting. So I was like, give me your money and I'll let you go. And he's like, that's fine. I'll give you my money and you can go. So he gave me his money and he ran off into the woods. It was late. I slept. I slept in the bed till morning, and then I woke up. The dude was back and sleeping in his bed. And I woke up, and I'm like, what are you doing back here? And he's just like, he wouldn't wake up. I was just like, I'm just going to take your things then. And killed him, and I was just like, all your stuff. And then I cut his ear off, because if you kill bandits and bring their ears to the bailiff, he'll pay you for each ear. I'm like, yeah, sweet.
You have to go in there like Surgeon Simulator style and
No,
WASD like slice off the ear.
No, you just go into inventory and take his ear.
Yeah.
How did they know that that's a good ear to bring?
Yeah, how do they know that's a bandit ear? That's a
Listen,
very good point.
This
Like,
is
are they marked a special way at birth?
I imagine
Like
this
a
is
little stamp
this
on
is
them.
based on factual history, so maybe this is what they did for bandit murdering.
Sure, I'm just saying, what's the logic to it? You could have killed anybody and taken their ear.
Very, very
This
true.
is my ear. Don't worry about the blood. No,
I'm handing you my ear. Give me money.
Chad's like, he trusted you, and I'm like, well, he came back. I don't know what you want.
Dude, I don't know what it is. Like, Henry just makes me think so much of Podrick from Game of Thrones. Like, I feel like you're playing as Podrick.
Interesting.
But
Kinda, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
sort of,
Mod it.
but Podrick is like, he's higher ranking than Henry is, at least for where I
Yeah,
am in the
Henry's
game.
like a little noob. It's like if your little brother was like all of a sudden like, I'm gonna go fighting today. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like Henry is.
I love that premise of it though, because I think what a major selling point has been, and what people have been talking about pretty commonly with it, is that you aren't really the hero, you know, born into the ultimate save the world role. You are Henry, whose entire family was murdered and village destroyed and ravaged, and you barely survived, and you're gonna find your way through somehow, despite sucking at everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's your story.
It's great. They really sell that too in the first hour or two, because like your character's like, I'm going back to where we got murdered. I'm gonna bury my parents and I'm gonna take care of it. And like the noble who's keeping you in safe, he's like, you're not leaving this town. I'm not letting you leave this town. So you're supposed to find a way to sneak out. And very hero of the day, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna bury my parents. You go back to this town that's ransacked. There's bandits everywhere, and your character gets his ass kicked. You're like, well, I guess I'm not the hero at all.
I would love a game that takes a hard turn after that moment where he gets his ass kicked and he goes to work at a bakery, and then the rest of the game is him staying at that bakery.
Baking simulator.
Baking.
Really glad I didn't do that whole bandit killing route. That would have been weird and hard.
I was honest to God really afraid that this game was going to be boring without any magic or monsters and stuff, but it's not. Like, I know like the wilderness can be a little dead sometimes, but one of my favorite things to do is just jump on Pebbles, your shitty first horse, hit the road, and just ride through the wilderness and see what random things I come across. Because it does a thing a lot of open world games do, where there's like, you'll randomly encounter somebody on the road who's needs your help or is begging for money, or, you know, a group of people are walking by. And just to wander the wilderness and see what I run into, and just kind of enjoy that emergent gameplay experience that the game throws at you pretty regularly.
I feel like it's a lot of interacting with other NPCs.
Yeah.
Like a majority of your interactions are going to be talking to other NPCs, learning things, and then doing. I feel like in the beginning, it's a lot of doing like menial tasks, like go get this thing, go do that thing, go kill those people.
Right?
Like, yeah.
Yeah, the game makes you earn it, basically.
Ryan would fucking love this game. Oh my god.
It might
he'd be all about it. You got to suffer to be able to have any sort of enjoyment whatsoever.
Yeah, he'll fucking love this game. What I will say too is what this game made me really want is I would love a company with a budget to do like a Game of Thrones RPG in this style, because it made me realize that a low magic or no magic setting where the real pull is political intrigue and story,
The human element.
the human element. I would love a game that's like this set in the Game of Thrones world, or just a world that is fantasy but is way closer to reality than fantasy.
The thing
Did you ever play the Telltale games once? Oh, sorry.
I got halfway through and I was bored out of my mind. Personally.
I think it's important if they ever did something like that, though, and it'd be really hard for them to resist, is try and tell a Game of Thrones story without acting like the big banner characters need like special introductions and stuff. Like, you have to act like they're actually people in this world, not like characters in a show that you're watching, which I find it like hard for them to stop doing that in those situations.
They keep doing a great job in this. Like, one of the missions I had, the head of the army was like, don't go far, and all I want you to do is like, you know, case the joint more or less and find some clues, and that's it. Don't go anywhere. And then later during that quest, you kind of get a lead, and it gives you the option. It says optional, go here, investigate this, and then you do that. It's like optional, go here and investigate this. And if you do all that and come back, by the time you get back, there's somebody there waiting for you, and the guy who gave you the quest is like, I told you not to fucking go anywhere. I would string you up and lash you if I had the opportunity to do it. Like, because in my mind, my gamer mind was like, do all the optional stuff. Fucking go for it. And the dude reams you for it. You get in so much trouble for breaking what the rules. And you constantly have to think like that. You have to listen to your nobles. You have to treat them with respect. The game gives you plenty of opportunity to mouth off at the nobles. And if you do, it closes opportunities for you. The game, like, punishes you for being a peasant mouthing off at a noble. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do. I really appreciate it a lot.
A lot of times I would imagine somebody would just get killed for something that stupid. And then what would be really cool is if the game is like, okay, you died as this character, we're going to put you in a different body now and see what you think of this new life as this other peasant and what they're going through. That would be
You
a
can
sweet
go more in your
Oh
previous
my
peasant.
goodness.
There
It'd be
is
like Driver San Francisco, but for peasants.
you can in the opening little tutorial village, if you commit a crime and get thrown to prison, and you're in prison when the invasion happens, the whole building burns down while you're in prison and it's game over.
Oh my gosh. Why are you in prison so much?
Yeah.
Listen, I wasn't for that. I only found out through other people. I didn't commit a crime
Okay,
in my
I was
town.
like, geez.
His friend was in prison.
I just know from a friend who went to prison.
Tell me about the game world and the map, because I hear it's 9 miles, it sounds small to me, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, they originally were going to make it bigger, I think was the plan, but then they opted to make it smaller and really focus in on like the story and the people in the world, or like the characters in the world.
Yeah, it's I think I have about half of it uncovered at this point. And if you really want to travel from one to the other on horse, it's going to take a while. Granted, they do put fast travel points on. But if you do fast travel, there's still the opportunity that during your travel, because it simulates your travel, you can run into something and you can choose to ignore it or encounter it. And if you choose to ignore it, there's usually a percentage chance that you can actually walk by it without it being going off, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels big. I mean, I agree with Maggie. I think they were supposed to do bigger, but I'm happy that they were like, okay, here's our budget. We shouldn't like blow it out of proportion. Let's focus it in.
I think it was a smart choice for them to make. And I mean, obviously there's room for improvement always, but I think that sometimes people get so caught up in like the bigger picture of development. I've been on projects like that since I've been a game designer, for those of you who don't know me and my background. And I think that often that can be a thing where people just they're like, oh, I want to do all these things rather than focusing in on like the core things that make your game and making them better. So I'll give them props for that.
Yeah, something that actually happened to very, very recently was the System Shock remake got put on indefinite hold because they said their vision got too big and they need to refocus up. So I'm glad that didn't happen with Kingdom Come Deliverance. I'm very surprised by how much I'm in love with this game. But it could be just because it might be my style, because I love like those Mountain Blade, heavy simulation, medieval
This
style
definitely
games.
seems like it's right up your alley. I mean, like you're all about kind of deep simulation too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like, you played Dwarf Fortress, for God's sake.
Yeah, well, a little bit. Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead is where I put a lot more time. But yeah, it's really, really fun to like explore and like come across things. Like I came across a poacher's camp once, and you kind of have this dilemma, like nobody's around, he's not supposed to be doing this, but the penalty is like I could go report him to the cops, I could just kill him, I could ignore him or bribe him. I killed him personally, but that's just because I'm an asshole. Like when it comes to these games, like when I'm around other NPCs, I'm like I'm a law-abiding citizen. The minute I'm alone, my sword is entering every orifice of everybody's body, as long as I can just steal everything.
God. Don't tell us what you're doing on your own time, Matt.
Is there a relationship system in that? Speaking of this,
well, people do get to know you actually, like, and it tells you the more you do evil acts, if people witness them and get away, the more the nearby town, and then eventually it'll very slowly spread to other towns, will know of your reputation of being an asshole. However, I walk into town right now, everybody's like, "God save you, Henry," and we love you, Henry, and I'm like, "That's right, because I'm a good guy, because nobody's ever seen me commit crimes."
You're such a like evil little bastard.
No wonder I can play Thonk so well.
Yeah, you played Thonk very well. Yeah.
The other thing too, which I like, remember I was talking about being clean and getting like bonuses. If you want to intimidate somebody, if you approach them with dirty clothes and a bloody sword, you get a bonus to intimidating them. So there's always those elements of just like paying attention to how you look and how you're dressing and what the next task you want to accomplish is, and trying to customize yourself, I guess, to that task.
Can you steal sweet ass knight armor and then sneak into a castle and pretend you work there?
You can steal sweet ass. Okay, so I don't know this. I haven't had it happen to me yet, but I was told by other people who've played the game that you can steal knight armor, cover your face, and like pretend that you are a knight and get into places you shouldn't be able to get into.
So there you go.
Interesting.
Speed
I
run.
haven't done that.
But getting the difficulty is getting the knight armor.
No, it's easy. You wait until they're asleep, you steal it.
Right, but they usually sleep
then
in
you gotta cut the
barracks.
memory out of their
But
head.
that's
There's
the
like
part.
a bunch of them.
Yeah. And
So-
the thing that's really difficult, I think, for a lot of people who haven't played this game before to do is to accept the fact that you can't really go more than 1 or 2 on 1. Once you break that 2 enemy part and there's like multiple, like 3 or 4 or 5 enemies, rethink how you want to fight them, because they're gonna whoop your ass so fast. Because you're not like a superhero. You don't have an amazing amount of health, and if you have really bad armor that isn't covering very vital areas, they hit you once in that spot, and now you're bleeding out, and half your health is gone.
Slash their Achilles tendon, and they can't chase you then.
That's true. Just get down there, just knife
I
it.
don't think this. Well, they always have like gaps in their armor, right? That's
Right.
sweet.
It's great. I'm loving the game so much. There's a lot to love in this game.
I want to talk about just kind of zooming out of it for a second. Their Kickstarter raised like $1.5 million back in 2014. And
What was their goal?
I think it was like 300,000 pounds.
Good
so
Lord, what the hell are they gonna?
1.1 million pounds out of that. And like you said, this is their first game. Warhorse Studios is a brand new studio, just founded apparently it was founded 6 years ago, but I guess they just haven't worked on anything up to this point. It really strikes me as like a very unique situation, because it sort of seems like that Fable wet dream that we all had 15 years ago, where Peter Molyneux was like, everything you do will impact every other facet of the world. You know, it's like, it's such an in-depth, intricate system that
It's the Eurojank masterpiece.
the
though.
Eurojank, exactly. There's so many
is,
different
though.
elements that all rely on each other, and like, no studio is gonna do that now. No Bethesda, no EA, no Activision is really gonna look to pour millions of dollars into a project that's gonna have that sort of scope and require that level of commitment to those minute things. But this team can.
That's what like
However-
Eurojank means, more or less.
Yeah, pretty much. But like, however, there's the caveat to that, which
Yes.
is, okay, cool. They get to do all these fun things, and good on them if they are functioning. However, what seems to be the case, and what, you know, the writing on the wall for this probably is it's buggy as shit. Like,
Yeah.
it's really buggy and kind of ruins the experience a little bit from what I'm hearing.
That I think is the main thing that ruins it for me, is like the random little unpolished bits. But I think that if you can get over that,
If
you will enjoy the game and you will have fun. If you like political intrigue and combat and like a world that kind of has like a more living, breathing aspect to it, I think you'll enjoy it. And it just has a lot of, it has bugs, but it also has like a lot of little interesting things that I think that they do that just it works really well. Like I was saying, you can play like a little chess game or a little board game with like an NPC, or a card game with an NPC. You can do like all these like little things that I just don't think you would look over, like most game companies, like you're saying, would just like look over or pass over it, right?
yeah, it's I don't know,
And
like the
The
bugs.
way that you learn things, and even though it takes a long while, you feel like it has a purpose.
Well,
Like,
that
you-
alone too, just the idea of starting the character off, as silly as it sounds, of starting the character off as a piece of garbage, like he can't really do anything, that would turn off a lot of people, I think. And that's scary to do, like the big AAA companies. They don't want to make a game that is deterring to people out of the gate. They want to make something accessible. That's why, like, when you're playing these Skyrim and Fallout RPGs, not to like really hate on them or anything, but it sort of feels like the world is centered around you. Like everything is built to create the best possible path for you to have a winning experience. And that, you know, that comes down to like, when you go to get a quest, you can go talk to an NPC in their house at 3 a.m. and they won't give a shit, right? Like, because you're the god of the game. But if you do that in this game, I hear they're going to be like pissed off at you, and they're not really going to like
They might not answer the door.
facilitate the conversation, right? Yeah. So
Yeah, like in Skyrim, if you commit a crime and you're like, the guards come up to you, you know you can fight the guards and pretty much win every single time and be fine.
right.
But wasn't the initial comparison to those things was that it's real buggy, right? And aren't Bethesda games known for that as well? So
yeah, definitely.
I mean,
So,
I think it's just the nature of this scope and this many systems being in a game. Like almost no matter who you are, I think it's going to end up pretty buggy. It's just whether or not they follow up on patching that. And I know like Skyrim still hasn't. They just ported it to the Switch, and there's still the same problems as when it was launched originally.
yeah.
I mean, they have patched Kingdom Come a couple of times so far, and they have fixed a lot of things. But I still run into, other than silly little bugs, the game is soft locked on me twice. like where I'm supposed to be able to talk to somebody and I can't. And the frustration there is with the save system, which is something we actually haven't talked about, which I should talk about.
Yeah.
The save system is much like the rest of the game, trying to be realistic. The only time the game saves is one, if you sleep in a bed, that'll save it. So it's like that hardcore mode in like Fallout 4 kind of thing, where you sleep in a bed. Or the other way you can save the game is by a drink called Savior's Schnapps. It's an alcoholic beverage. It's pretty freaking expensive, and after you drink it, you're drunk. But that will allow you to save it anywhere. That's really frustrating because with a game that soft locks occasionally, to lose an hour of progress is infuriating. There is a mod, which I downloaded, that lets you save anywhere without the need for save your schnapps. Basically, I guess all it really does is it goes into like the files and it's just like change save your schnapps necessary from 1 to 0. And it'll save, and then you can do it. But yeah, I just downloaded it and added it.
Because I have also had a similar issue happen to me, and it was very frustrating. So
so
I hate that straight up.
Yeah,
like, why?
I do want to talk about that too.
I didn't mind it until the game soft locked on me, but again, because I kind of thrive in that, like, immerse me as much as you can. If I'm gonna go attack a bandit camp, then I need to be smart and go back and sleep and prepare for this attack. So that way, if you know, I can't just go right from point A to point B to do it. But because the game is so buggy and so frustrating, just mod it and get the save anywhere mod. And you're done.
That's almost like breaking a fourth wall of realism there, you know? Like, I can forgive them an inconvenience that is built within the game. For example, I need to drink every 4 hours or I'll die. Okay, that's fine. I'll deal with that, you know, a la Subnautica or something like that. But saving, I don't like saving utilized as a mechanic.
It's not actually that bad. I agree with Mathis. I feel very similar to him in regards to it did not ruin the game for me at all. Like, it wasn't. The only time it was infuriating was whenever I had like issues where I was like, well, I have to restart. Like, I can't do anything. But I think otherwise, like, it made sense. And like, I was never feeling like I don't know where a bed is, right? Like, I know where I need to go to sleep. So it wasn't, I didn't ever feel like I couldn't just go and save if I needed to.
Promising,
but I'm on the other end too, where like while I'm on Maggie's like preferences, the idea of people being like, well, now you can't save scum. Yeah, but here, my argument is, what if that's how people enjoy their game? Like, if people want to be a perfectionist and save scum, let them. Just give it as an option, and maybe in the difficulty choices of like Iron Man mode or like soft Iron Man mode. You have an adventuring
kit and you have a bedroll.
Yeah, exactly. Like a bedroll. Exactly. You give them a bedroll if they want to save anywhere, kind of thing, to let them do their thing, because that's how people enjoy the game. Another thing that I think they're talking about bringing in an upcoming patch is save on quit. I would die for a save on quit. Like, give me a save. Like,
okay, I would like that.
Yeah, let the game save when I quit. That way I don't have to fucking fast travel to a town far away where I have a bed I can sleep in. Let me save it when I quit the game.
I'm at the point now in the year of our Lord 2018 where I'm like, you let me quit the damn game when I need to. Like, I'm done when I'm done. You don't tell me when I have the opportunity to stop.
I don't need. It's like old Final Fantasy finding a save crystal. I mean, like, I gotta go save it.
I got shit to do. Let me get on with it.
Yeah. So that's the other kind of bigger complaint. I would bitch about the lock picking, but they're actually overhauling the lock picking completely because it's just that bad. The lock picking is garbage. It's terrible.
What is it like? Is it
okay? So the way the lock picking works is when the lock picking like UI pops up, you get a wheel, and you have to move with your mouse this little ball until it turns fat and golden. It means it's in the sweet spot. Once it turns that way, you can start rotating the wheel. And what you have to do is you have to keep that golden circle in the sweet spot as the wheel is rotating. So you constantly have to like move your mouse with the wheel.
Oh, so you got like a weird two-hand rotation.
Yeah, so you're rotating with the A and D, and you got the mouse while you're trying to rotate it to follow the wheel. Yeah. It sounds not that bad.
That different. I mean, if you look at like some of the other games, I think even like Witcher has like you have two things. You're like using a button and you're doing a mouse to like mess with the
just trying to simulate the experience as best they can, I guess.
It's terrible, and they're switching it. Thank God.
Okay, good.
It's bad. Other than that, I give it, for me, like a high recommendation with the caveat of you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, I feel like this is Man, you're almost better suited just waiting for a little while, aren't you? Because we know that there's issues with it. They're probably going to patch those issues out. So maybe just wait till it's patched.
Yeah, and I think if I was giving a recommendation to somebody, I'd be like, wait to maybe a sale. Like, it's not like a game to me where I'm like, you need to play this like right now, go get it. But I think like if that's the type of game you really like and you feel like you're missing that in your day-to-day gameplay experience right now, I think go for it and buy it because it is really fun. I enjoyed it so far, and I think if you're into that,
I think I'm a little further along the like I fucking love it path, and like as long as you understand the bugs, I would personally be like, you need to play this game because I think it's well worth it. They've already sold over 1 million copies too, which is I'm happy.
That's really impressive. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
especially for a Kickstarter title.
Yeah, I think majority of the gameplay is fun and you'll enjoy it, especially if you don't mind a lot of like NPC conversations, because I feel like a lot of it is talking to NPCs. I just do want to preface that.
just be ready, let yourself be immersed, be whisked away to Bohemia, 14 whatever.
That's such a gentle way of saying there's way too many cutscenes. Let yourself be immersed.
Yeah. Well, no,
It's like you're conversating back and forth. It's not
it's like the role play thing.
you're going on a monologue for 10 years and then you do something.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like Shadow of Colossus where like you're watching like a big Colossus like transform in front of you every single time.
Let's talk about that wonderful game.
Segue, professional Maggie.
I know, just helping you out.
Kingdom Come Deliverance is out now, though, if you are looking to pick it up. It's 60 full-fledged bucks, but, well, no, there's no but. It's $60. There you go.
that is all it is.
Yeah. Shadow of the Colossus, the 2018 release on the PS4. Remastered from the ground up by Blue Point Games, who have also remastered. Well, they did provide the PS3 remaster for Shadow of the Colossus before, the Yikyo and Shadow of the Colossus collection. They also remastered Gravity Rush, I want to say Devil May Cry, and then I think the Uncharted collection as well, and the God of War collection. So
they're remaster masters.
They are the remaster masters, exactly.
Gotcha.
Before you get started, can I just put one thing on the table, and that's that in prior episodes of Roundtable, I have stated very clearly, I think this game, Shadow of the Colossus, is probably the game with the most potential for a complete remaster out of any game that I could think of.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think they did with that? Did I nail it?
Actually,
I want all the credit for this game that they created.
I very distinctly remember you saying that exact thing, and I wholeheartedly agree.
And at the time, I had no idea they were going to make one, so
yeah,
I was just hoping.
Blew me away when I even heard the announcement. You were there with me. I was shocked. But oh my God, they nailed it. Like everything. Blue Point has perfectly encapsulated the version of this game that I played when I was a 15-year-old. I saw it this way when I was a kid, and now they made it a real thing, and it's incredible. It is so awesome. This is like far and away the best video game experience I've ever had, because I'm a huge fanboy of this game, and I think we all know that by this point. But I've been playing a 12-year-old product now for a long time, and it's well, not for a long time, I guess, for 1 year exactly for 12 years old, but like it's been a little dated now, and for me to be able to experience it this way is so incredible. They just perfected this experience. So I want to try to figure out where to start from. Let's talk about
beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's goddamn gorgeous. Like
it's beautiful. This is like we talked about Kingdom Come and how I think like they did voice acting really, really well, but the voices didn't fit the areas that they were in. I think that Shadow Colossus did an amazing job with all the audio. Like that is something that they nailed.
I agree completely. The audio design,
like the music and the timing and like just the way that like things transition, like even in moments where I don't want to spoil too much, but like a Colossus like is landing and crashing and like the silence and like just everything like makes you feel like the emotion of what's happening without like making it feel too unimmersive. I don't know how to explain that.
Does the spoiler time period reset with a new remaster of this type of game? Because this is a pretty old game.
I don't know.
That's an interesting question, actually.
I still was trying not to spoil things when I was playing on my channel, so I don't know. I'm trying to be a little careful still. Uh,
Well, you fight Colossi. I think we can all
Yeah.
say that's fair enough.
That's
There's
true.
not really a lot to it. Yeah, to be honest, like it's pretty straightforward. There's 16 colossi, you fight them all. That's it. Yeah, no, I completely agree though, Maggie. And like that was a point that I was really trying to hammer home when I was playing it too. I was listening to the audio design for each individual Colossus, which they put so much attention into.
Just even the sounds of like them getting up off the ground and stuff like that just sounds so epic. Like I
And they
guess
all have
I
their
honestly
own
think if I could sum up, you know, the whole game in one word, it would be epic. Like it is like you're nonstop battling bosses. And I think some people don't like that. They like I want to kill mini bosses, but this is like that's what you're doing this entire time, which you always just feel like intense action is happening.
In the interim, you're riding around on your horse and occasionally killing lizards. Like that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And that horrible horse. I'm sorry.
It's animated really well though.
It's
You do have to say
beautiful.
that,
Like
right?
when you're running and like the way it animates and the world, it looks beautiful.
Mhm.
But let me tell you, your controlling is not beautiful.
Okay, I'll concede that point honestly because it is a little frustrating sometimes. However, I recommend too, weirdly enough, for people that if you're having trouble with the horse, have you tried just not steering the horse? Because that often works, weirdly enough. It just sort of figures it out on its own. If you just like are riding along cliff walls or going along one of those land bridges and you just let it go, it figures it out instead of you trying to like awkwardly navigate. But maybe you already tried that. I don't know.
Have you tried not playing
it
the
out.
game?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to figure out if it's a design decision that the game behaves that way, because I think maybe the psychology here is that they want the horse to feel like a real animal that does its own thing sometimes.
That's
Yeah.
what they said.
But
But I'm like, don't fucking tell me that janky ass shit. I've ridden a horse, and most of the time
Yeah.
it does what I want it to do.
Secondarily, is that even a good idea from a gameplay perspective
No, I
to
don't.
force that?
Yeah.
Well, that's that we get into the Trico argument there, right? Of whether or not having an actual
Absolutely.
animal that
Well, it's
you
hard to
can't
control
is
something at 10
wild.
frames a second, so.
True that too, and luckily this game doesn't have that goddamn.
Hey!
If you have a PS4
or you can play
Pro,
at 30.
If you have a pro, yes, that's a very
I don't have a
important.
Pro, and it doesn't run at 60.
You do need a pro to get it at 60, but if you have a pro, this is it's butter. It is so
And
smooth.
if you don't, it's
60?
real bad.
It's going to be so much better for like when you're on the Colossuses or
Yes,
whatever, like
yes. Because
Colossi,
in the original
because
game,
you have to do all these like weird things and like grip onto it and like just there's a lot going on, and so the
Mhm.
extra frames do help. Like I know it sounds really strange, but it actually
it's-
does.
in the original game, that it got so bad during some of those fights, the FPS would dip down to like 10 for real when you were in the PS2 fights, and now it's every bit of it. I think
I can
there's
imagine
only,
playing like that and like trying to.
Grab
it was
on.
hard. It really it made it unfortunately worse, and I am really glad that they addressed this issue. But like, just I think there's really only one place in the game where I experienced any sort of graphical hiccup whatsoever, and that was in the main shrine. I sometimes like the frames will tear for some reason, like when you're walking through the top
Oh, like the
start to rip off of the bottom part, but it'll like auto correct itself, but it's really weird looking. But other than that, like I go everywhere. I have explored this game. Believe me, I've played it probably 4 times now all the way through, and I go everywhere, and it's like just perfect. It performs so well. I'm really amazed by that.
I know I ran into like one bug, but I can't remember what it was. I'm gonna remember it randomly.
Okay.
But I'm like, yeah, generally played very well for me.
I'm seeing contradictory things to my experience in chat here, but my experience on a regular PS4 was that it was like 24 to 30 FPS at best. And when you're turning in, basically the whole game is massive open environments, you see kind of the stuttering of the frames go by as you turn around, which greatly impacts the fluidity of the gameplay, unfortunately, and kind of diminishes some of the sense of scale because you can't help but notice that it's struggling to run. It's not as bad as the other game, Last Guardian, but it's like it's noticeable to me. So I'm curious, maybe is it like a problem with my PS4 if other people aren't having this experience? Like, what's going on
Was
here?
it when you were like you turn like whenever you turn and now you're like rendering a bunch of new stuff? Is that when it was happening to you?
All the time. Like as soon
Or
as you
just all
leave
of
the
it?
shrine, you get on the horse, you start to turn toward the bridge. It's like the whole way there and then over the
I
bridge.
did have frame fluctuation,
you.
but not as intense as you're saying.
Yeah. Sucks.
Well,
I feel like
thank
it's their way of getting me to buy a PS4 Pro, but or something
I
wrong.
was just gonna say thank you for helping me justify my own purchase, man. That it's certainly a little bit better about it. yeah, so again, just hammering off the big points here. The audio design, absolutely phenomenal. It's beautiful. Just, I want to get into detail about that too, because they made so many little changes, and of course they rebuilt the whole thing from the ground up, so they had to introduce these things themselves. But like, when you look at comparison videos, for example, you can just see the level of detail and love that they put into every single area. Just the detail in the shrine and the architecture and all the little foliage, like the way that when you step on leaves and branches, they will move out of your way under.
Oh, that is
like,
really
it's
cool.
insane the level of detail that they put in. And I love like the lighting too is really phenomenal to me. I think it's volumetric lighting is what it's called.
Their lighting is fantastic.
Sunrays shining through everything, and like it adds on too when you get like the pillars shooting up from the Colossi and you get this majestic skybox that is just so incredible to see. And really, I can get totally immersed in it. Like this is, I loved the PS2 world, just riding my horse around in that thing, but now watching this play out on a 4K HDR screen it's melting my brain. It's so good.
Curiously, I'm Bear. I don't know if I've ever asked you this question before, but what is it about Shadow of the Colossus that just has you so enamored and in love with it?
Well, let me pull out my drafted list of 16 reasons why I love Shadow.
Oh my gosh. I thought he was going to be like, I have a thesis for this.
I literally do. No, seriously, man, I put a lot of thought into this stuff. Let me just rattle off a few things. Like Maggie said, for example, epic is an amazing word to describe it, because I don't think I've really dealt with a lot of games that handle the sense of scale as well as Shadow does.
I mean, put it this way, you'll be like on the ground, right? You're on your horse or whatever, and like out of the ground erupts like this giant snake monster thing, and it's like you turn around, you're like, holy shit. That thing is fucking huge. Like it. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Because he said frackin' or frickin' or whatever he said before.
Fuck!
It's just,
All right,
like,
go ahead.
it's
We're good.
Massive. Like you're looking up at it like, I can't kill this. Like, and sometimes you can't. Like they want you to interact with the world in order to kill something. So you have to do other things in the world to like defeat the creature, which I think is also an excellent thing. Like it makes you're not like the hero that you think you are. You're not always going to be able to do it yourself. You have to like use the environment and utilize it. But like, you just look up and you're just like, nope. Like if it was me IRL, I'd be like, I'm booking it as fast as I can.
I think of like maybe even like Nier Automata is probably another good comparison for games that deal with scale really well, but like it's so cool when it's able to present you with something of that size and really make you feel like you're insignificant compared to it. That's something that I feel is difficult to really pull off very well, and this game just does it over and over and over again. I love too, like it's another weird comparison we can make to Kingdom Come, but the way that Wander, the main character, he's sort of not really a hero's hero, you know? He's sort of just a regular kid that got a sword.
A terrible name. Sorry.
Yeah, well, he does have a terrible name too. He's just got to save this mysterious woman. There's not a lot of, like, there's a lot of cryptic nature to the story too, which I kind of like, because you got to kind of put your own spin and interpretation on things. But I like that he's kind of an everyman, and you can see that in the way that he moves around too. He's kind of clumsy, you know, like when he swings his sword, you can tell there's a lot of weight in the sword when he's moving around. And that sort of adds to the whole appeal to me of like, this is a desperate struggle, you know. This is somebody who has no other options, is put into this position that is clearly overwhelmed, and it's just it all makes this really awesome experience for me. That's the gist of it. I mean, there's like 12 other reasons I could rattle off for you.
Is it partially the art style and the aesthetic to it as well? Because I feel like you're attracted to the whole series of the same developed games, and they all look kind of similar. They have a similar color palette, similar contrast, blown out whites, and like specific kind of. It's a palette. It's a very specific palette.
No, yeah, I agree. Then like. On top of that too, there's a cinematic presentation style that they have that I think is really just perfected in the remaster here too. Just like the way that I think that even ties a little bit into the way that they present scale, because in order to do that well, you have to deal with the camera well, you have to deal with like the size of things around you, obviously, but like that can sound like a thing that is obvious, but you gotta figure out like how big is the little hooklet that comes off the Colossi compared to Wander, you know, like little bits and details like that they paid attention to that makes it seem like, yeah, this is a real thing that existed way before you were here. This is this massive, beautiful wasteland that was not created for you. You know, again, getting into that same sort of thing of like the world was not made for you. The world exists and you happen to be a part of it. You know, like that it conveys that
continuity
very, very well. Yeah.
When a game can do that, I'm with you. Like, I'm in that world at that point. I'm just like, all right, you're sold. Take me for a ride.
You know, the very first Colossus, when you find it, it's just kind of standing there in that plateau, right? And when you first see it step, it like breaks a whole bunch of the ground. And I know this is such a stupid detail, but it bugs me that all the ground is like normal and not deformed and not broken up. It's just regular flat ground. So like, speaking to that continuity point, like why didn't they mash up the ground a whole bunch? It would have looked so much better that way.
Yeah, I guess you got to think about like how long would the fight last? Maybe you just end up destroying the entirety of the plateau, right? But
but he's been there before you got there, is what I mean.
True,
and the ground just looks normal.
Yeah, that's a valid point too. So it is a little bit of an issue, a weird issue. I agree. Like I wish that they would have just not even done that, you know, like because it doesn't look like they should be destroying the earth that they walk underneath for the most part. But
yeah.
Oh shit!
Was that a fire alarm?
Yeah, well, I hope not. God damn. That's definitely a fire alarm. Okay.
Just keep going until you see smoke billowing into your camera view, and you're fine. You're fine.
Are we good? I think we're good.
Elise comes running in.
She's got like all the buddies in her arms.
We're gonna get out of here. Chubs on the shoulder.
Finish the show though. It's okay.
I'll just blow on it until it's done.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I really could gush about it forever just because it was the game that I really connected to as a kid, and I'm
What
giddy
connected?
that they did this.
What connected you to it as a kid, and like what aspect of the first or like the remastered like really hit the nostalgia for you? What was that moment where you were like, yes?
Oh, the nostalgia hit me like immediately. It was during the introductory cutscene when it was particularly when he's coming out onto the bridge during the start. I was just like, I love it. Thank you for it. Thank you for making this. And it's really tough to pin it down to like what it is that attached me to it, you know, because I almost identify with it as a part of my ego now. Like this is a game.
Did it just come around at a point in time in your life where like you were just kind of open to that kind of thing, or
perhaps, yeah, and like,
or was that like the time where you felt like it took up like a good portion of your time as a kid, or like what is it that like really hit it for you?
That could probably be. And you know, there's thinking back to like what I was doing, what I was spending a lot of my time on when I was playing the game back then. I remember like really being interested in whether or not there were any more secrets or any more like colossi, like final fight that was supposed to be found that nobody had found yet. So, and this was like a little bit, it was about when the internet was starting to form, like the forums and IGN had their things where you could go on and be like, oh, has anybody found X and Y and stuff like that. So
back in the X-Fire days.
Right.
Yes.
ICQ. No, I'm just kidding.
ICQ, holy crap.
ICQ
That was
way
like
before
blast
that, I
me
think.
back into the late 90s with that right
I know,
there.
I'm sorry. I'm old, so.
No, I remember ICQ too. MSN
And,
Messenger. Anyway,
and
sorry.
yeah, I got super enthusiastic about that. And I remember, I don't remember the guy's name, but there was like one particular dude that ended up just investigating every nook and cranny of the place, like flying around to every kind of glitchy area and like walking around just to make sure that everything had been explored, and really didn't find like anything at all. There's not a lot as far as big secrets or mysteries to uncover in this game.
My biggest gripe with the game in general, and still it will always be that, because I thought with this remake they were going to use that plateau, that platform, to redo the concept of the game to be what I initially imagined it to be. And with such an open and massive landscape that's so kind of mysterious and dissonant, you know, you're this force of unknown good or evil fighting a force of unknown good or evil, and there's all these crags and mountainscapes and biomes, infinite space to hide stuff. and they just chose not to, really, like almost exclusively. There's a couple things, obviously, but like they mostly just left it empty. And I don't get that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that end. Like, you know, even Bear was saying, like, the stuff in between the boss battles, which I think having it be like giant monster versus giant monster versus giant monster being like the epic moments is really cool. But there's something about like interacting with the world that I also enjoy in most games, and I feel like it does lack that greatly.
Yeah.
Like you're just, I mean, it is beautiful as you're running along, but
There's just nothing to do.
Yeah.
And I think they really didn't want to stray from the original formula to such a degree that it's actually a detriment. I see the original as a flawed game with a great premise that they could have improved upon, and they chose to really stick to that.
I'm with you. I actually was really hoping they would tune up the mystery aspect of it by actually putting in like more of that story, because I felt like it didn't have as much of a story as it could.
I suppose I'm a bit of a purist then in that sense, because I understand the perspective they came from of we don't want to touch it, you know, like we want to polish it up, we want to make it look as good as it can and play as good as it can, which we haven't really even talked about the controls, by the way. I want to get into that a little bit, but I think I understand really, like they added the little golden coins. That's not much of a spoiler, by the way. There's like all these coins scattered throughout the remaster now, which are really just a fun extra thing for folks like me.
A Vista channel.
Yeah, exactly. It's a sort of issue of whether or not they wanted to really change the game at all.
Right.
And it seems like they didn't.
They don't.
Like, yeah, they just wanted to keep it exactly the same.
But on the court of like what you think, you like that purist aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I think potentially that is how people who are like super into that game feel maybe the same way. So maybe that was the reasoning behind it. I don't know.
And
Yeah.
to go further, I also think that I respect that it's a solemn landscape, and I don't necessarily mean that I think they should have populated every corner with like NPCs or something. I just mean to acknowledge that you went to these places that they've already got, or to allow that secret-filled thing get into your head a little bit more by rewarding the player sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And like they could have kept going with more further secrets, or added that secret Colossus that you never got, or you know the 5 or so they cut out of the game.
Yeah.
Right? This could have been their redemption arc to finally create the perfect version.
Baby Colossi.
Well, there's one,
and
in
then you'd have to
particular,
stab him in the head.
Yeah, that's true.
I know, like, there's a few of those concept colossi that get tossed around a bit, but there's one in particular, that spider one, that I really wanted them to make because that looks so cool. It's like this massive 8-legged thing that you had to climb up, but it was like crawling around the entire area and like moving up on cliffs.
I like how he's like, he's describing a spider basically.
It's a big old spider. It's got 8 legs and a torso.
Spider-like.
It crawls.
I found the landscape
me out,
far more
sorry.
compelling than the colossi, weird enough. Like I was more
Yeah,
interested in walking around that landscape than fighting stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. I'm looking actually at, I was just sort of racking my own brain here trying to figure out what I was doing back in 2005. I was just looking at like the list of the biggest releases of that year. And I suppose it kind of makes a little bit more sense what I was comparing it to. Yeah, well, Resident Evil 4 was what everybody was going crazy for that year.
Oh,
that was the first Guitar Hero came out in 2000.
Oh, Lord.
Oh boy.
Really?
That was a good year then, huh?
Mm-hmm. Jade Empire, that was another good game.
Oh,
that came
what a
out that year.
phenomenal RPG.
Indigo Prophecy, which I also played. Did you guys play that?
I
Yes.
played that game like 5 times through.
Oh
It's,
Yeah.
it is
played
the
it so
only
much.
David Cage game that I enjoy, and it still
It's
has
good.
a David Cage ending, which I hate.
Oh, that Mercenaries came out that year too. That was a good game.
Oh,
I
that
liked
was a
that
good
one.
game.
If you look at that list, you
I don't know
just
if I played that.
if you went like through that list and then compared them to Shadow of the Colossus, Shadow's like the only one with much heart to it, other than maybe Indigo Prophecy. So I could kind of see why you might identify more with that. Some of the others, there's like depth to it.
I do want to
Yeah.
mention, by the way, I Googled best video games of 2005. Guess what the first result was?
Resident Evil 4.
Shadow of the Colossus, followed by Resident Evil 4. How about that, huh?
Fair.
Validation.
You could pick a lot of years between then and now, and it would be Resident Evil 4.
Yeah,
That's also
probably not
true.
wrong, yeah.
So what
That
about
was
the controls then? Did they mess with?
Right. So, Nick, I think you'll be happy to hear this, really, because
I played it today. I put like an hour.
So
in.
yeah, you've got a firsthand experience then. in my opinion, they like fixed the controls. You know, they're still a little iffy, but I like to believe for the most part that is by design, because again, Wander's not an Olympic climber. He's just a dude, and he's trying to scale these massive beasts, and he's going to be a little bit kind of clumsy and oafy about it, right? So you got to kind of expect that. However, I feel like 99% of the time now he's doing what I want, which was not necessarily the case in the original. Like it, especially during the fights, it often ended up being like I'm trying to jump to a particular place, and either like the camera will shift some weird way, or I just wasn't going the direction I thought I was, or any little number of things. But they've eliminated so many of my minor gripes that I had with the controls in the original, and just made it so seamless and fluid now. Like I again, it's a matter of feeling like you're doing what you told the game to do. And for the most part, I do feel that that's the case now. Do you feel similarly?
To throw out a gross generalization out, I think 90% of the time, the difficulty was getting on the horse. The other 10% of the time was the final Colossus.
Okay, yeah. There you go. If that's all your issue is, then I'm pretty sure you're straight, right?
Yeah, it seems all right. They actually made it now so like almost any way you throw the character at the horse, you pretty much will land on it. So that was like
yeah.
pretty good call, I would say, to do that. Yeah.
That's a bad joke, Bear. You don't call the horse glue. That's weird.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Oh,
You know, if he didn't lampshade, I wouldn't even notice. Yeah, probably improved somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't played it. I've only killed the 2 Colossi so far at the beginning. I was going to ask you, actually, do you remember in the original, and you probably do, the one on the beach underneath the bridge, when you kill it and then you go past it for the next Colossus, is it there dead on the beach in the old one and the new one, or is that only in the new one?
Yeah.
That's always that way?
If you go back to every single Colossi that
they're
you
all
take
there.
down, you can go find them, yeah. Mhm.
Okay. I
pretty
thought they had changed that up with a little bit of a new touch.
No, you can actually you can go and kneel down in front of it and just fight it again. You just
Oh.
start right over it by kneeling at their corpse. So there you
I
go.
did not know that.
That's a cool
Oh.
idea.
Mm-hmm. Also, fun little bonus information while I'm tossing these tidbits out. They have the photo mode, which is fantastic. If you've played Horizon Zero Dawn, I'm sure you're familiar with the photo mode. But you can also turn on the filters in the photo mode and leave them on and play with them, which is kind of neat. I didn't realize that until today, actually. So I was trying.
I didn't know you could leave the filters on, but that's cool.
Sweet.
I do like that more games are adding that like screenshot element of things.
Yeah.
This game needed it. Oh, it is gorgeous. It is so satisfying. To look.
There.
I take pictures of my screen on my cell phone.
I go to the
Nick's like, let me grab my phone really quick.
I go to the cliff that is like to the left of the shrine when you get out and go see like these massive waterfalls, and
Whoa.
Oh, no.
That's
Oh, no.
louder now.
I think we
Yeah.
actually might be having an issue. No, we're good. Okay, we're good.
All right.
Um,
Bear just ignites. We're fine. We're fine. We're
This
fine.
is
There's like a fire behind
It's
him.
fine.
Everything's
Everything
fine.
Everything is fine.
What was I saying?
Photo mode, filters.
Photos.
The left of the
Beautiful.
shrine, left of the
The
shrine.
left of the shrine, like just looking out over that cliff and seeing all those waterfalls, and like the water is so incredible. The way it's an actual physics object, and you can see the ripples interacting with each other, and the way that it
Nice water.
falls off of the colossi is incredible. Oh, cool. All right.
What?
What happened?
All right. I'm gonna mute my microphone for a second.
As a matter of fact, I'm replacing them all.
Oh, somebody's replacing fire
Oh.
alarms in the
Your
apartment.
batteries.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I
Oh
gotcha.
my goodness.
He's got to do his thing. Don't worry, guys. At least he's not on fire. And that is the most important. All right, Nick, you played it for an hour. You go.
Yeah, so it seemed all right. Aside from the frame dips, it's really, really, really pretty. The textures are incredibly high fidelity. Like you can go right up to Wander's face and look at like the pores in his skin, pretty much. First thing I did, of course, you walk up to the shrine and then you like let the camera hit the wall so you can get right in his face.
Right, yeah.
The cutscene at the beginning also really, really well done. There were little details like the way the horse aggro walks up to a set of stairs and then he kind of hesitates for a second before he decides to climb the stairs.
Oh, that is...
I see that and I go, a human being had to consider the horse's mentality
Yeah.
of going up those stairs, and that's the kind of detail that you don't add because it just adds literal money to the streamlining process of producing that content, and they did it anyway, which is nice. And I like when they go through the extra paces like that. It's a very small example, but then I went and fought the 2 Colossi at the beginning, and it's, exactly the same game it was before. And if I were to have many gripes, if any, it would just be that I wish they took the game further than they had, and they really just wanted it to be the old game again redone, which is what a lot of people probably wanted. I just have a different vision.
I think to talk on that aspect of things is like we've seen a lot of games being remastered in the last couple of years, especially
Including
last
this
year.
game. It's already been remastered once.
Yeah,
and I've already bought it once.
I think it has been, there have been games that have done it pretty terribly. And I would say that they are like on the top of the scale. Like they did a fantastic job, even without the aspect of like adding on. Because I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I like the idea of people adding more to it. But I feel like most games when they remaster, they just don't add more content. Very rarely have we seen that. And when they have, it doesn't always go well for them, unfortunately. Right. And I think it might be because of, if you think about like the development aspect of those things, a lot of the times it's like, hey, we know people like this game. We had a lot of people purchase this game. We could probably make some more money if we remaster this, right? Bring up the quality of like what it looks like basically is most of the time what they're going to do. They're not going to do a ton of like content because that's way more costly than just adding onto it in that regard. So I think if you look at it on that side of things from the development aspect, I think like they did a fantastic job. And most of those games, that's the reason why that they don't add extra content, is because it's just too costly for them for what they're trying to accomplish. And they're trying to do it in such a short period of time, because my guess is they're like, well, we need this much revenue added to our profits this year. And like, what can we do in like a 6-month period of time? Oh, we can make a remaster,
I probably have a chip on my shoulder, though, because ever since the game came out, I remember, like, right around then, it came out as news that there were cut Colossi from the game. I was like, so eventually they're going to add those, right? And then years went by, a remake happened, they didn't add them. Like, this is going to be the one, though, right?
See, I think, like,
version.
I don't know if the understanding you have of that is necessarily all completely correct. Because, like, as far as I know it, those Colossi never really reached like a point where they were even ready to be in the game. Like they were always just.
They've had like 15 years now. Like they should have. They should have known people were excited for this bit of info and wanted to push it, I think.
Well, I mean, I didn't ever expect them to add those, is the thing. So like, I'm just sort of like coming from that perspective too. Like, well, I mean, as a super fan, I was never really expecting that to be added on to this remastered version of it.
And I think that it goes back to like their development time. I'm guessing they didn't have that much time to develop like a whole another slew of Colossi, even just one, right? Like I don't know if because a lot goes into those things. And I'm guessing they could probably reuse a little bit of things and just retouch on stuff. So I don't know.
Guess we just want
to very costly to make a whole new model. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I just wonder if we're gonna get another game in that world. I mean, technically we do, because it's like technically a prequel to Ico, I believe, or Eco, however you say it.
There's some sort of connection there, yeah. I don't really know what
but I wonder if we're gonna get another one in that same vein or that same world. But then again, maybe that's what Last Guardian was, and didn't even think of that. Right. Yeah, that was probably the next.
I'm kind of okay with this just being, like open and shut. This is it.
This is your. Yeah, it's your favorite game of all time, for Christ's sake.
Yeah,
that's
good.
And you got what you wanted out of it.
I got everything I wanted. I continue to get what I want out of it, man. I just started up my hard playthrough finally, which I haven't really done a lot of. Weirdly enough, as much as I've played it, I've very rarely made the move up to hard mode. And the time attack stuff.
I always go hard mode first. Always.
You do?
Like I do the hardest mode in every game first. Like I just always do that.
I used to be that way, and I've very recently even started doing easy mode sometimes because I'm a little baby man who does little baby things.
I feel like if you're doing YouTube series, I could see where doing a lower mode would probably be easier, because there's been times where I'm like, I take way too long to complete like a boss fight.
Yeah.
Which I know was probably boring as heck for viewers to watch.
Especially in games where it just sort of like artificially elongates things instead of actually making them more difficult.
That's always the worst. I hate whenever like your Uber or hard mode is just like not actually like challenging. Yeah. Just like, oh, they one-shot you now. And you're like, okay, well, that's not.
I mean, that's hard,
but anything out of this battle. You just made it so have to not get hit. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, really, like, this is just, again, it is everything I wanted out of this remaster, and I didn't even know this remaster was going to be happening last year. So goddamn, they really
No,
knocked
last
it out of
year
the
you
park
were
as far as I'm concerned.
waiting for The Last Guardian at this point last year, or was The Last
Wait a
Guardian
minute.
out?
Oh, yeah, what was the timeline? Didn't we?
I have to look.
Because the hype
When
for
did
Last
we find
Guardian
out
on
about
The
this,
hype for Last
right?
Guardian was insane.
Yeah,
I know, Bear was the
certainly
president
a
of it.
massive active part of it.
I think that Last Guardian and Horizon Zero Dawn were always like next to each other in every like I always saw them like next to each other in all the ad spaces that I always saw too. So it's like
Yeah.
very interesting.
So they did announce the remake last year. So it was like I was anticipating Last Guardian all the way up through the end of 2016. Got it. Was disappointed, and then for like 6 months had nothing until I had this. And then hey, all right,
They're
everything's
like,
back
we're
to-
sorry. Here we go.
yeah. Exactly.
Oh, The Last Guardian. What you could have been.
Man, I really want to keep playing it, and I want to
Just
like it.
janky.
Have you beaten it?
I tried it again with the 4K, and it's really pretty, but it's just still boring and not really all that, like, I don't want to keep diving in.
It was in the pipeline too long.
Stirring bad memories.
Yeah, I agree with Nick. I think it was probably just in development hell for too long.
Yeah, it could be. Mhm.
I mean, Duke Nukem Forever suffered a similar fate.
They needed to Eurojank it. That's what they needed.
Go for the Eurojank games. Eurojank games are great. They try so many things that AAA developers won't try.
Yeah.
I think like I always try to go back into like the development aspect and like I
Yeah, you have
mean,
that
I would
perspective.
wish that I could understand what was going on in the development phase for some games because I think often what happens and what I see is someone will have like a creative direction, right? And like you'll have everyone's like, okay, this is cool, this is hype. And then someone will just make a decision to change something. And then it changes everything else in the timeline and puts all these resources on something that like, why are you guys even focusing on that thing? Focus on the main course of like what you're trying to, deliver. And often I see that happen whenever a game company has an idea of what they want to do, and then they see another game company doing something like, we need that system, and then like you're divvying out your resources. I'm just curious as if like something like that happened in the development phase.
That happened to Fortnite. I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, then they got rich off of Battle Royale mode, which I hate worked. It's because it's just like, they're like the second one on the scene. They're gonna make so much.
They were
money.
highly dynamic and were rewarded. In
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
there you go. That's a good way to
exactly.
phrase it. As a PR spin.
True.
Anyway, though, yeah, it's masterful. I highly, highly recommend it. If you haven't played the game
You should
yet,
play it.
oh my God, you have to play it. Please, like, get it and play it. It's perfect.
I'm assuming we could
People
put.
enjoy the boss fights. The time in between is gorgeous. It might bore you a little.
I'm assuming this game is in the category for you, Bear, of games you wish you could wipe from your memory whenever you want, so you could play it fresh every time.
Oh God, if I could, like, yeah, man, I hadn't even considered. Fuck you. I hadn't even thought about that. Damn it. I'm sad.
I only say that because Subnautica was that for me recently. I was like, man, I wish I could wipe Subnautica from my memory so I could do that whole thing again. So,
Right.
Man, that makes me really excited. I'm excited to play.
enjoy it.
I was hearing like mixed opinions on it, and then my
it's
viewers
phenomenal.
were like, "No, you need to play it." Now that we've heard how much you love scuba diving, I was like, "Okay, but isn't it a horror? Like, aren't there like scary parts to
It's
it?"
like
That's why.
I call it I don't know if this is even a term, but a natural horror game. It's a game that doesn't set out to spook you. Like, that's not the purpose of the game, though there are moments where obviously it's supposed to be a little spooky, but it's not like purposely placed jump scares in the world.
The abyss of the ocean is inherently scary.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
When there are large things that are sort of monstrous flying around next to you, yeah, you're gonna get a little spooked sometimes, I think.
Yeah. It's great.
Cool. Well, Mathis wraps up the show now, right? That's how we.
I
do
mean,
it.
all right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hey, actually, while we are here wrapping up the show, Ask Roundtable. We are bringing it back. Send us questions at roundtableyt@gmail.com so we can answer them in the next episode. Please and thank you. We would love to answer your questions, even if it's about, like, what beard oil we use. Whatever,
Dear
man.
Mathis,
I
why are
started
you
using
so
some.
evil?
And why am I so evil? Because it's profitable in video games, man. There's
I
a
didn't
option.
realize the benefits of beard oil, man. It's so smooth.
It's
love
great.
I know.
right?
I bought like a whole bunch of beard oil for my boyfriend, and he has still yet to use it. I bought him like the beard oil, the other stuff. I don't know what it is, and like a brush. I don't know.
Just
Tell him
brush.
to use it for himself, not even
Right?
for you.
Exactly.
Nice. Love it.
I
It
know, but
is
he
nice.
hasn't even tried it.
So yeah, send us questions. But Bear, you're back, man. It's all on you, buddy. End
Yeah.
it.
Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mathis and Nick, for keeping the ship afloat while I was away. Appreciate that as well. Thank you very much, Maggie Krohn, for joining us today as well. Where can they find you on the internet?
Oh, cool. Yeah, you guys can find me at Margaret Krohn in all the places, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, all the things. I have internet now, supposedly. They came today and they fixed it. So hopefully I can start uploading again. I upload daily vlogs at Margaret Krohn on YouTube, and I upload daily YouTube videos for gaming on Margaret Krohn Plays, and I stream at twitch.tv/Margaret Krohn. I pretty much am streaming every day except for Fridays, so you guys can come check it out.
On top of your full-time duties, you were a busy
Yes,
woman.
and I also work a 9 to 5 job that usually ends up being like 5 to 9. I don't know. It's a long. I end up working a lot of hours. Just put it that
Damn.
way.
All right. Yeah. And again, thank you all very much for putting up with my little bit of absence there as well. And with the format changes here, of course, as I mentioned, and I was joking there when I said it was big sweeping changes. No, we did definitely go behind the scenes discussing things, trying to figure out. Of course, this is happening right now. It's happen. Yeah, so we're very glad that folks are willing to embrace the change. We look forward to keeping the show going. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. You can follow us here on twitch.tv/Roundtable Podcast every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific. VODs will continue to go up on my channel, youtube.com/BaerTaffy. I'll have the VOD for this episode tomorrow. And if you'd like to get very early access, of course, you can go to patreon.com/roundtable, where you can pay $5 a month.
$5
Get that early access right out of the gate for the VOD as well. And Mathis, I'm gonna toss it over to you because I assume you have the Patreon.
Oh yeah, hey Patreon. So hey, thank you everybody for.
Let me stop for a little bit more time here because you can also follow us over on Roundtable PC at Roundtable PC.
That's why you were trying to log in. I was very confused.
Yeah.
I didn't. It did not register with me for some reason.
Like Mathis said as well, please do send us some more Ask Roundtable questions. We did like having that segment for the 100 episodes that we did it. So let's keep it going. roundtableyt@gmail.com is where you want to send those questions for Ask Roundtable.
Yes, send them some questions, man.
So
Send
many
them
questions.
What the heck?
So many
If
questions.
I had known earlier, I would have submitted some questions.
Hang
So
on, that's the right tab. All the questions. View all patrons, all the questions. And thank you everybody to the $20 plus reward tier and up for being longtime patrons for the show. We appreciate you very much. Those people being Julian Avelsgard, Scrotty119, Ricky Grist, Simmerfett, Cowboy Chemist, Eric Schooley, Stephen Aoki. That's not my real name. Not an unironic shout out.
Steve
James
Aoki, dude, that's the EDM guy.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
he's
sweet,
awesome.
dude. James Peed, Peter Sunson, Ellis Spice, John Kalchik, O Tomaz Games BR, Jakar Sampson with the dance number, Kulnar, Sahoa, Talks to Wall, Colby Klein, Green Light, and Oren Saltzman. Much love.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for supporting the show over on patreon.com/roundtable. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back next week.
Ryan will be back
next week, right? Yeah. Okay, so we'll have the OG crew all together
He was
again.
just afraid of me because I, made fun of him last time. So
He spent a ton of money to go to Korea and watch the Canadians lose, is what happened. So,
He spent a ton of money to go to Canada.
Korea.
Fuck it, I've already lost it.
South
I'm
Korea to watch the Canadians lose the Olympics. Perfect.
done. Good stuff. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I won't see you.
We won't,
Oh, Maggie
but
won't.
we love you anyway. Goodbye.
Bye.
Beep, beep.